This man stands outside a building, on the verge of seeing his unusual dream come true. His dream, to demolish the building and watch it crumble into ashes. But no, he isn't some kind of madman. There's a specific reason behind his desire. Meet Vincenzo, a man of Korean descent living in Italy. He's a key figure in the most powerful mafia family, serving as their lawyer. Vincenzo is a master at laundering money and keeping the family legally untouchable. He was adopted by an Italian mob boss, Fabio Cassano, who recently passed away. Honoring his adoptive father's final wishes, Vincenzo pays a visit to a member of another mafia family. This man, arrogant and overconfident, assumes that with Fabio gone, the Cassano family won't dare to touch him. Vincenzo calmly explains that his father's last wish was for them to reach a settlement, which is why he's there. However, when the man refuses to cooperate, Vincenzo leaves. As he walks away, a plane flies over the man's estate, spraying a mysterious liquid. The man comments that the fields had already been sprayed last week, unaware that this is all part of Vincenzo's plan. The liquid is gasoline. Vincenzo strikes a lighter, tosses it to the ground, and sets the entire place ablaze. Later, Vincenzo attends Fabio's funeral. At the ceremony, Fabio's biological son, Paolo, creates a scene out of jealousy. He's furious that his father trusted Vincenzo more, often giving him the family's most critical assignments. That night, Paolo sends 3 assassins to eliminate Vincenzo. But Vincenzo, being both clever and resourceful, outsmarts them and takes them down first. Afterward, Vincenzo calls Paolo, who is driving back to his mansion. As they talk, Paolo's car explodes another one of Vincenzo's plans. Over the phone, Vincenzo warns Paolo to back off or face certain death. He announces his plans to leave Italy and advises Paolo not to come after him. He values his life. Vincenzo then flies to Korea, but his thoughts linger on a hidden room filled with gold plates of treasure he has every intention of claiming. This room isn't just in any ordinary building, though. Meanwhile, in Korea, a woman named Cha Young is in court representing Babel, a powerful corporation. The company is being sued by several people claiming their medicine caused harmful side effects. Interestingly, Cha Young's opponent in this legal battle is none other than her father, Yuchin, who is representing the plaintiffs. When Vincenzo arrives in Korea, he takes a taxi. The driver offers him water, but it's drugged. Vincenzo passes out, only to wake up tied inside the car. The driver and his accomplice rob him and leave him unconscious. When he comes to, Vincenzo has nothing left. Luckily, he spots some money on the ground, just enough to buy a bus ticket. Eventually, Vincenzo reaches Seoul and stands before the building he's been dreaming of demolishing. A flashback reveals the backstory. A Chinese businessman and criminal once approached Vincenzo for help hiding his gold. The man didn't want to stash it in China, so Vincenzo and his assistant, Seok, devised a plan. They bought a building in Korea, built a secret room beneath it, and turned it into a gold vault. But there was a catch: the room was rigged to collapse the entire building if someone tried to access it without the proper precautions. The Chinese businessman loved the idea and went through with it. Now, with the businessman dead, the gold remains hidden, and Vincenzo sees an opportunity to claim it for himself. When Vincenzo meets with a local contact, Young Woon, he learns that the building is occupied by several tenants and serves various purposes. Vincenzo isn't too concerned. He's confident he can convince the tenants to vacate temporarily, perhaps by offering to renovate their spaces for free. But the next morning, a representative from Babel arrives, announcing the company's intent to buy the building. They even make an impressive offer. However, Vincenzo turns it down, leaving the representative stunned at his refusal of such a lucrative deal. That night, Babel takes more extreme measures. A group of armed men breaks into Young Woon's house, knowing he's the legal owner of the building. They threaten to kill his family, forcing him to sign the contract selling the building to Babel. The next day, while driving, Young Woon calls Vincenzo to tell him what happened. Suddenly, a truck crashes into his car in an attempt to kill him. At the same time, Babel sends a group of thugs to the building to warn the tenants they have 7 days to vacate. The tenants refuse, and the situation quickly escalates. Cha Young and her father, Yuchin, step in, but the thugs show their brutal strength, physically attacking them. Just then, Vincenzo arrives and takes control of the situation. After punching one of the thugs, he grabs their leader and dangles him out of a window as a warning to back off. The thug leader, however, orders his men to attack as soon as he regains his footing. Before anything more can happen, The police arrive and break up the confrontation. After the incident, Vincenzo talks to Yuchen, and they realize they could become allies since they have a shared enemy, Babel. Later, Vincenzo visits Youngwoon in the hospital and asks if anyone else knows about the gold hidden under the building. Youngwoon confirms it's just them, but warns that if Babel renovates the building, they'll inevitably discover the gold. A flashback shows how the Mafia had secured the secret room by eliminating everyone involved in its construction and the gold's transport to ensure absolute secrecy. Vincenzo returns to Yuchen and suggests they work together to stop Babel from evicting the tenants before their legal deadline. His plan is to buy enough time to demolish the building himself and claim the gold. Cha Young, hanging around her father's office, invites Vincenzo to dinner to lighten the mood. During dinner, she reveals she works for Wu Sang, a law firm representing Babel. Meanwhile, Babel's president, Sean-ho, meets a mysterious figure wearing hockey gear at an ice rink. The man pelts Sean-ho with hockey pucks, scolding him for poor performance. Sean-ho apologizes, but the man is unimpressed and beats him with a hockey stick. Elsewhere, Cha Young attends a meeting at Wu Sang and starts to feel uneasy about working for them, suspecting they might be on the wrong side. A colleague, Jang, overhears the firm's boss giving Babel the green light to evict the tenants and warns Cha Young about it. Babel isn't just planning to evict the tenants, they want to demolish the building immediately to begin renovations for their new lab. Vincenzo acts quickly, rallying the tenants to host a festival outside the building. When the thugs show up with bulldozers, they're met with a lively celebration. Destroying the building now would attract too much attention, especially since Vincenzo invited the Italian ambassador to the event. The police, recognizing the thugs as Babel's men, urge them to leave, warning that they'll have to intervene if trouble breaks out. Over the next few days, Vincenzo studies Korean law, searching for a way to extend the tenants' grace period. Keeping them in the building will delay Babel's plans and buy him more time to access the gold. Surprisingly, Yuchen gets a call from a former Babel scientist who was the lead researcher on a drug that caused severe side effects. The scientist reveals that Babel's drugs not only have dangerous side effects, but are also designed to create addiction, turning patients into junkies. One trial even resulted in the death of a volunteer. Fearing for his life after witnessing Babel's unethical practices, the scientist fled. Yuchen urges him to testify in court, but the scientist hesitates, asking if his safety can be guaranteed. Unfortunately, Yuchen can only promise to do his best, which isn't reassuring enough for the scientist. Later, Yuchen gets a call from a former client, Ms. Yoon, a woman he previously defended in court. She was injured in prison but reassures him that she's doing fine now. Vincenzo tags along with Yuchen to meet her, and although Ms. Yoon doesn't seem to recognize Vincenzo, he feels an uneasy sense of familiarity when he sees her. That evening, Vincenzo meets with Babel's representative and requests a 2-month delay before Babel begins renovations on the building. The rep initially refuses, but Vincenzo uses his mafia tactics to persuade him. He's gathered dirt on the man, including compromising photos of him with his secret girlfriend. Backed into a corner, the rep has no choice but to reconsider, with Vincenzo pressing him to make a decision soon. Meanwhile, Babel's thugs are gearing up to evict the tenants and demolish the building. However, the rep calls them and orders them to hold off. While Vincenzo has managed to win this battle, Babel strikes back by sending an assassin to cause an explosion at a hotel where some of their research team members are staying. The next morning, Yuchen learns about the explosion through the news and quickly concludes that Babel is eliminating the doctors involved in developing one of their drugs. Rushing to the crime scene, he finds the police wrapping up their investigation suspiciously fast. Frustrated, Yuchen argues with the officers, demanding they follow proper procedures. Vincenzo tries to calm him down, but his mafia instincts kick in when he notices two men watching them closely. Vincenzo warns Yuchen that continuing to push will make them the assassin's next targets. Meanwhile, one of Wu Sang's toughest lawyers, a woman named Choi, meets with Seon-ho, the president of Babel. Afterward, she tells her boss that she doubts Seon-ho is truly in charge of Babel and suspects he's just a puppet for someone else pulling the strings behind the scenes. Yuchen later calls the scientist again to convince him to testify, and while the man is almost ready to agree, he's hesitant due to the danger to his life. Elsewhere, Cha Young meets with Choi, and their interaction is tense as both women are determined to outdo the other. Later, Cha Young has an argument with her father about their opposing morals, leading her to grab a drink to cope with the stress. Around midnight, a man posing as a police officer knocks on the scientist's hotel room door. claiming there's been a robbery and he needs to speak with the guests. Realizing the man isn't a real cop, the scientist escapes through the window and runs toward the docks. Desperate, he tries to call Yuchen, but Yuchen steps outside for a smoke. Vincenzo sees the incoming call, but chooses not to answer, fearing the situation will spiral out of control if the scientist testifies. Tragically, the Babel assassins catch up to the scientist and kill him. Shortly after, Yuchen heads back inside the building, but a truck suddenly crashes through the glass and hits both lawyers. Yuchen is killed, while Vincenzo survives and is rushed to the hospital. Cha-young visits Vincenzo after attending her father's funeral, and to her surprise, Vincenzo wakes up, ready to take action. Though he doesn't have concrete proof yet, Vincenzo is certain Babel is involved in Yuchen's death. A few days later, Cha-young becomes convinced that Babel was behind her father's murder when she sees a news report about the head scientist's body washing up on shore. Without hesitation, she storms into Wu Sang's office and resigns, despite Choi mocking her, claiming she can't handle the pressure. Meanwhile, Vincenzo returns to the crime scene to investigate further. Examining the area closely, he uncovers key details about the incident. He then calls his friend Young-woon, urging him to act soon. That same night, Seon-ho comes home to find syringes stabbed into his pillow, a chilling message from Vincenzo. The next day, Cha-young meets with the tenants at the Goenga Plaza building and tells them she plans to continue her father's mission and support their fight. Suddenly, two police officers show up and arrest her on bogus charges orchestrated by Wu Sang. When Vincenzo hears about it, he rushes to the police station and asserts his authority. He questions the officers about their evidence and, when they can't provide any, he confidently takes Cha-young out of there. Just outside the station, Jang introduces himself to Vincenzo, claiming to be a big fan. While his demeanor seems friendly at first, his behavior grows increasingly odd. Meanwhile, Vincenzo moves forward with his plan and takes Cha-young to confront the man who drove the truck that killed her father. Vincenzo demands to know who gave the order, but the driver tries to play tough. Vincenzo, aware reasoning won't work, presents facts to back him into a corner. He points out how the man's sentence was mysteriously reduced from a long-term punishment to just 2 years, clearly a result of influence from powerful connections. Tapping into his dark side, Vincenzo threatens the man with the prospect of meeting people in prison who'd be willing to kill him. The driver finally breaks and provides a name, though he claims never to have met the person face-to-face. As Vincenzo prepares to leave, he intentionally yells out a thank you, pretending the driver has agreed to testify in court. A nearby police officer overhears this, setting a deadly chain of events in motion. That night, the driver is cornered and killed by inmates while a complicit officer stands idly by. The following day, Vincenzo makes his next move, or, more precisely, his next move finds him. Babel's representative tries to ambush Vincenzo to eliminate him as a threat, but Vincenzo quickly overpowers him. Using the representative, Vincenzo arranges a meeting with the person who ordered the truck driver to kill Yuchen. During the confrontation, Vincenzo grabs the man's pistol and notes that it's not standard police or military issue, indicating high-level connections. Vincenzo demands answers about who gave the kill order, but the man refuses to talk. Demonstrating his seriousness, Vincenzo shocks everyone by shooting the representative. In the next scene, Vincenzo cleverly traps Choi in a laundromat. While on the phone with her, he has a truck turn its headlights on her and charge forward. Terrified, Choi believes her life is about to end, but the truck stops short. Vincenzo calmly informs her that he knows she gave the order to kill Yuchen because he was standing in Babel's way. Leaving her shaken, Vincenzo walks away, and the truck drives off. The following night, a contamination team enters Babel's lab, claiming they need to sanitize the area, and asking the scientists to leave for a couple of hours. Once the lab is evacuated, it's revealed that one of the team members is Vincenzo. He lights a match, letting it fall to the ground and ignite the lab. Instead of disinfectant, the lab was doused with gasoline as part of a plan to destroy it. A brief flashback reveals how it all came together. Vincenzo only pretended to shoot Babel's representative. Yuchen's former associate had secretly pulled the man out of harm's way. Believing the rep was dead, the other captive revealed all the critical information Vincenzo and Cha-young needed. Back in the present, Seon-ho arrives at the burning lab and screams in fury. Two of Vincenzo's allies turn up the gas, causing another explosion that sends Seon-ho flying. Moments later, an expensive car pulls up, and the real mastermind behind Babel steps out, none other than Jang. Despite pretending to be an intern lawyer, Jang is the true leader of the corrupt corporation. As Jang glares at the destruction with rage, Vincenzo and his team make their escape. However, the people helping Vincenzo and Cha Young aren't just hired guns. They're individuals Yuchen once fought for, now stepping up to honor his legacy and support Cha Young in her mission. The following day, Vincenzo plans to meet Xianho in person, though he approaches the interaction subtly. He heads to the gym, where Xianho is working out, and assists him with his weights while he bench presses. During the encounter, Vincenzo pretends to admire him, asking seemingly irrelevant questions, like whether he was inspired by George Soros. As a lawyer and former mafia member, Vincenzo is skilled at reading people. Later, when discussing with Cha Young, he concludes that Xianho isn't particularly sharp, leading him to suspect that Xianho isn't the true mastermind behind Babel. Vincenzo suggests that their next step should be investigating Director Gil, the man in charge of Babel's drug development. However, this plan is delayed due to a pressing issue. Victims experiencing side effects from Babel's medicine are reconsidering their case. An intermediary has offered the victims large sums of money to drop the lawsuit. Cha Young gathers the victims in her father's old office and attempts to change their minds. However, the victims believe winning the case is unlikely, making the settlement money their most viable option. Meanwhile, Xianho organizes a press event to celebrate researchers for a newly developed drug. During the event, one of the researchers unexpectedly spits blood on Xianho and collapses, creating chaos. Simultaneously, a group of thugs visits a pizza restaurant in Goenga Plaza, falsely claiming to have found a nail in their food. They intend to use the incident to defame the restaurant online. Vincenzo intervenes and tells them to stop. Annoyed by Vincenzo's interference, the thugs try to attack him, but Vincenzo easily overpowers them. The leader of the group, trembling, ends up paying for the food and then flees the scene. Later, Cha Young, intrigued by one of Vincenzo's moves, asks him to demonstrate it on her. He moves his hand near her forehead, and the two share an unexpectedly intimate moment before being interrupted by Jang, who enters the office and starts an informal rivalry with Vincenzo. They decide to settle their differences at a restaurant by competing to see who can handle the spiciest food. The next day, Vincenzo meets with the tenants of Goenga Plaza. One tenant, a monk, concludes a lengthy prayer and fasting period. Vincenzo informs them that he has arranged for temporary accommodations in a different building with new apartments. They'll be able to return to Goenga Plaza after renovations are completed, and their apartments will be significantly improved. With each issue falling into place, Vincenzo shifts his focus to the intermediary who tried to bribe Babel's victims. He uncovers the man's hidden embezzled assets and donates the money to non-profit organizations. Vincenzo then accompanies Cha Young to confront Choi and Wu Sang's boss. During the meeting, Choi recognizes Vincenzo's voice as the one from the night she was cornered in the laundry store. Suspicion starts to form in her mind. The following day, both parties gather outside the court, but Vincenzo's true plan is to avoid a trial entirely. Knowing they would likely lose in court, he organizes a protest with the tenants of the plaza outside the courthouse, delaying proceedings. The next time court is scheduled, Choi and her boss meet with the judge privately, offering a bribe in exchange for a favorable verdict. The judge indicates he might assist, but also requests a donation in cash. When the trial begins, Cha Young feigns illness to buy time. Meanwhile, the tenants sabotage the court building, causing water to flood the premises, forcing the judge to postpone the trial. Later, Vincenzo prowls around Goenga Plaza with a metal detector, searching for the exact location of hidden gold. However, an overly curious and clumsy agent, suspecting Vincenzo of being a mafia member, trails him. When the agent catches him mid-search, the building's high window design obscures the view of the metal detector, making it appear as though Vincenzo is simply kneeling in prayer. Elsewhere, Jang invites Xianho Choi and Wu Sang's boss into a meeting room for a presentation. He begins by revealing that Babel's founder was Sun's father, but the current president isn't his only son. He then discloses that he is actually Sun's brother, and the true person in charge of Babel. Wu Sang's boss and Choi are left with no choice but to applaud, though Choi's anger is evident. Later, when Choi is alone in her office, Jang shows his ruthless side as he sets his plan into motion. His people beat one of Babel's court rivals, and Director Gil injects him with drugs. Then they plant money on several other drug victims. All of them are soon arrested and taken to the police station. Cha Young rushes to their defense, but is told by the police that these individuals have been working together to embezzle money from Babel. Cha Young argues there's no concrete evidence, but now it's her word against Wu Sang's. Before the trial, Zhang approaches Vincenzo and Cha Young, warning them that they can't challenge Wu Sang because of the company's power. He advises Cha Young to reconsider, not to be influenced by Vincenzo. Their meeting ends on a tense note, but they know they need to put their personal feelings aside and strategize. Vincenzo and Cha Young realize the judge is likely biased, so they have to take action. When Director Gil is called as a witness, Cha Young calls his wife to testify. It turns out she no longer loves him and is willing to expose a secret. Director Gil uses drugs. With this revelation, Vincenzo argues that Gil's testimony is unreliable, forcing the judge to comply, as disregarding this obvious truth would ruin his career. Cha Young buys more time for her clients, allowing them to live to fight another day. Zhang is furious about the turn of events and yells at his brother. Xianho asks him if he plans to kill him like he did their father. A flashback takes us to a time when their father fell ill, and Zhang decided to have Director Gil inject him with drugs to kill him. In the present, Zhang is shocked that his brother knows about this, as he thought he was unaware. He grabs a fork and threatens his brother, warning him never to speak of it again. Meanwhile, the tenants are having a farewell dinner before they move to new apartments for a few months. A beggar asks them for food and starts telling them a wild story. He claims that a few years ago, he lived on the streets and saw men building this very building, carrying plates of gold and hiding them beneath it. The tenants laugh at him, thinking his story is too ridiculous to be true. However, the beggar shows them a phone he took from one of the workers, revealing a photo of a man holding a golden plate. The next morning, Vincenzo informs the tenants that it's time to move to their new apartments, as agreed. But the tenants have changed their minds. They don't reveal the real reason they want to stay, instead claiming that they've grown attached to the building and want to live there forever. Elsewhere, Xianho gathers Babel's vice presidents on a hockey field and scolds them for their poor performance, imitating his brother's harsh methods. He rules the company with an iron fist. After calling them useless, he starts hitting them with hockey pucks, causing them to fall on the icy ground. Meanwhile, Vincenzo follows Cha Young, who is visiting Miss Yoon, a woman who is ill. The doctor informs them that she has cancer, and while they'll do everything they can to keep her alive, there are no guarantees. Vincenzo is deeply saddened by the news, clearly upset by her condition. In another meeting, Lawyer Choi meets with Min Seung, the president of a bank, and tries to convince him to invest a significant amount of money in Babel. Min Seung is hesitant, as he believes associating his bank with Babel would harm its reputation. However, Choi pressures him by revealing that she has compromising information about him. She blackmails him, threatening to expose the truth if he doesn't cooperate. Min Seung reluctantly agrees and shakes hands with Xianho. The following day, Shou informs Vincenzo that the Chinese businessman previously owned an art gallery that housed priceless exhibits. He had installed a security system that used iris recognition to secure access to the most valuable paintings. Shou believes he can hack into the gallery's system and use the data to unlock the safe hidden beneath Goenga Plaza. Meanwhile, Min Seung visits Miss Yoon in the hospital, but his visit is only to mock her as she nears death. Pretending to share a secret, Miss Yoon asks him to lean in closer, only to grab him by the hair and give him a hard time. Cha Young tries to intervene, but ends up damaging Min Seung's hair further. Later, Cha Young tells Vincenzo that they need to get closer to Min Seung to learn more about him. According to rumors she's heard, Min Seung is gay, and she suggests Vincenzo seduce him. Vincenzo is appalled by the idea, but Cha Young and her father's former colleague, Nam, persist until he reluctantly agrees. The next day, Vincenzo joins the same horse riding club as Min Seung. He strikes up a conversation with Min Seung, and they discuss equestrian skills. After securing Min Seung's number, Vincenzo confides in Cha Young, telling her how awkward he feels about the situation. She reassures him, encouraging him to stick to the plan. Soon, Vincenzo takes Min Seung out for dinner, getting him drunk in the process. As their talk turns personal, Min Seung confides in Vincenzo, revealing his darkest secret. Min Seung discloses that he is the son of a man Miss Yoon killed in the past. His father had a habit of harassing the maids who worked in their household, but Miss Yoon fought back, injuring him fatally. Both Min Seung and his mother witnessed the incident, but chose not to call an ambulance, indirectly causing his death. The next day, Vincenzo and Min Seung go on another outing to a fair. However, Vincenzo shatters Min Seung's heart by telling him that they can't be together. Deeply in love, Min-sung refuses to give up. He waits outside Vincenzo's office to see him and eventually confronts him. Vincenzo tells Min-sung that if they are to be together, he must first do something for him. Blinded by love, Min-sung agrees to comply. Later, Babel organizes a press conference where Seon-ho is about to sign a contract for a major bank investment, with Min-sung scheduled to co-sign. When the moment comes, however, Min-sung refuses to sign, declaring that Babel is an unethical company. Seon-ho is stunned and quickly deduces that Vincenzo is behind this when he sees him clapping alongside Cha-young. Just then, Min-sung's mother steps forward and announces that she will sign the contract on behalf of the bank, revealing herself as the one in charge. This twist prompts lawyer Choi to laugh smugly. A flashback shows that Choi had met with Min-sung's mother beforehand and blackmailed her into cooperating by threatening to expose a dark secret. Though Min-sung's mother supports Babel, Vincenzo isn't done teaching Min-sung a lesson. With the help of the Goenga Plaza tenants, Min-sung is kidnapped and locked in a smoke-filled room. Some of the tenants dress up as zombies, terrifying Min-sung. When he finally escapes, he runs straight to Vincenzo, begging for protection. Min-sung is not only publicly humiliated, but also arrested after Cha-young persuades several of his former employees to testify against his abusive behavior at work. Furious, Seon-ho lashes out, but Jang steps in, urging him to stay calm. Meanwhile, Cha-young confronts Choi, and the two women engage in a heated face-off. As reporters swarm around them, Cha-young vows to bring down Babel, accusing it of operating like a criminal cartel. Meanwhile, chaos erupts at Goenga Plaza as everyone becomes obsessed with finding the hidden gold. However, they aren't the only ones searching. Some unknown thieves have also joined the hunt. Elsewhere, Director Gil has relocated from Seoul because he believes Jang will target him. Knowing that Jang views him as a liability, Gil fears Jang will try to have him killed. Gil reaches out to Judge In, who arranges protection for him. Meanwhile, at Seon-ho's home, he hosts a dinner with some powerful figures, asking for their support and promising mutual benefits. However, one of the men becomes furious, accusing Seon-ho of attempting to bribe them. This strategy backfires, as these men are later intercepted and abducted. Back at the plaza, the tenants discover the thieves attempting to infiltrate, leading to a chaotic fight between the two groups. Vincenzo arrives home during the commotion and confronts the thieves. Unfortunately for them, Vincenzo swiftly overpowers them, forcing them to flee in humiliation. At the same time, Seon-ho has abducted two men and taken them to a container. One of the men, the chief of the Bureau of Investigation Against Organized Crime, seems willing to collaborate with Babel. However, the other man is defiant. He soon regrets it when Jang enters the container wielding a hockey stick and brutally kills him. Woo-sang's boss, Hwang, warns Jang to be more cautious, as such reckless violence could bring trouble. However, Jang, blinded by his hunger for control, dismisses the warning, declaring he can do as he pleases. While Seon-ho is visibly shaken, Choi merely smirks, her own madness evident. After the fight at the plaza, Cha-young spends the night at Vincenzo's house. The next morning, the two watch the news and learn about the man Jang killed. They decide their next move should be to uncover who is truly running Babel behind the scenes. Later, Vincenzo approaches one of the monks using the room above the safe. Despite Vincenzo's best efforts, the monk insists he cannot leave the temple due to his religious vows. Over the next few days, Cha-young and Vincenzo brainstorm ways to take down Babel. They decide to reach out to Judge In for help. During their meeting, Judge In reveals that Director Gil may be considering switching sides, but can't provide further details at the moment. Meanwhile, Jang contacts a senior member of a Colombian cartel via video call, promoting Babel as a gateway to make Korea a drug haven and urging him to invest. The following day, Vincenzo contacts Judge In again, requesting Gil's location. Although hesitant, the judge eventually gives in, knowing Vincenzo's methods might yield results. Cha-young and Nam accompany Vincenzo as they track down Gil, only to find that Babel has already reached him first. Gil is dead. Choi and Jang celebrate their success, but it's clear Gil won't be their last victim. A day later, authorities discover a van filled with dead bodies. These individuals were part of an illegal resistance against Babel. The scene is staged to look like an accident, but Vincenzo and Cha-young visit the police station to express their suspicions. Unfortunately, the officers are on Babel's payroll and refuse to investigate. Determined to expose them, Vincenzo tails the officers to a gambling club, where he catches them collecting bribe money. He follows them to the rooftop, where they begin counting their cash. Vincenzo takes incriminating photos, and when the officers notice him, they attempt to attack. However, Vincenzo easily overpowers them, tying them to chairs and pushing them near the edge of the building. Cha-young joins in, adding her own intimidation tactics. The officers, now terrified, promise to change their ways and start doing their jobs properly. Meanwhile, Mr. Han grows closer to Seon-ho, planting the idea that Seon-ho should be the one in charge of Babel. These words fuel Seon-ho's hidden ambitions, and he begins to consider becoming Babel's true leader. The next morning, Vincenzo announces that they need to take on Babel using mafia-style tactics. He explains that their strategy will be to hit Babel hard first, and then completely dismantle them. To start, they aim to humiliate the company. Vincenzo enlists the tenants of the plaza to create a YouTube show criticizing Babel. Next, Vincenzo plans to intimidate his enemies. He begins by painting a large red C on Huang's wall. He then repeats his earlier zombie prank, with one of the fake zombies leaving the letter C on a window. Finally, Vincenzo sends what appears to be a bomb to Seon-ho, scaring him, only for it to turn out to be another C symbol. When Jang and his team analyze the situation, they figure out that the C refers to Vincenzo's Italian last name, Cassano. Jang laughs when he realizes Vincenzo has been a member of the mafia all along and is now using mafia rules against him. Determined to strike back, Jang sends a dangerous gang to terrorize the plaza's tenants. Babel's old thug crew, feeling insulted for being replaced, tries to fight the gang, but they're easily overpowered and flee. However, the tenants aren't defenseless. A tailor among them reveals his impressive combat skills, using scissors to take down the entire gang. Meanwhile, Jang tricks Cha-young into meeting him, pretending to have valuable information. At the same time, assassins are sent after Vincenzo. Nam calls Cha-young to warn her, and she rushes to find him, with Jang following under the guise of helping her. Vincenzo, however, has already set a trap for the assassins, killing most of them. He spares one to interrogate, but the man refuses to reveal the true identity of Babel's boss. Soon after, Jang and Cha-young catch up to Vincenzo, who now has the assassin's phone. Vincenzo calls a contact saved on the phone to find Babel's leader, making Jang nervous as his phone vibrates in his pocket. Despite walking close to him, Vincenzo doesn't hear Jang's phone vibrating. The next day, Vincenzo visits Ms. Yoon in the hospital. She opens up about her life's regrets, confessing that she abandoned her child years ago due to financial struggles. Vincenzo has always known that Ms. Yoon is his biological mother, which is why he's quietly taken care of her all this time. Later, two police officers arrive at the plaza to arrest Vincenzo, accusing him of being linked to the Italian Mafia. Though they don't have solid evidence to imprison him, they intend to deport him. Meanwhile, Seon-ho has a meal with his brother and suggests that he should take full control of Babel. This enrages Jang, who considers his brother incompetent. Furious, Jang grabs a knife and warns his brother never to speak about such a thing again. Elsewhere, an agent from the intelligence agency meets with his chief to advocate for Vincenzo. The agent, having grown fond of Vincenzo, convinces the chief that Vincenzo is a valuable asset in the fight against organized crime. The chief approves, and the agent intercepts the police, gaining custody of Vincenzo. Out of danger, the agent tells Vincenzo he wants to join his team, but has 3 conditions. The first 2 are reasonable, but the third is simply a request for a hug. Soon, Vincenzo's old mafia friend Luca calls to inform him that someone has been asking questions about him. Around the same time, Han meets with Seon-ho again, manipulating him by suggesting he's capable of running Babel. Seon-ho knows his brother will never let that happen, so he starts considering more drastic measures. Suspicious of Judge Han, Vincenzo abducts him and forces him to play Russian roulette. Under the pressure, the judge finally confesses that Jang is the one running Babel. He also admits that he's been working with Jang due to his connections in high places, which promise quick career advancements. Armed with this information, Vincenzo pays Jang a visit at his apartment and threatens to kill him. Showing how twisted he is, Jang grabs the gun and presses it to his forehead, daring Vincenzo to pull the trigger. At that moment, law enforcement bursts into the apartment, and Vincenzo is arrested while Jang plays the victim. A brief legal dispute begins as the judge tries to convict Vincenzo for attempted murder. However, Cha-young steps in and successfully prevents this, allowing Vincenzo to walk free. Meanwhile, Jang decides to let his brother handle some Babel-related tasks, but only because Choi advises him to stay low-key and take a break away from the bustling city. Later, Zhang drinks water from his fridge, unaware that it's been tampered with by Vincenzo's associates, leaving him drugged. Vincenzo then calls Zhang to demonstrate his dominance, boasting about his victory over Babel's president. This infuriates Zhang, especially since he prides himself on having top-tier security. Soon after, Agent shares good news with Vincenzo, revealing that his agency's chief has been playing a double game with Zhang by pretending to be on his side. This means they might gain critical intel when the time comes. And also tells Vincenzo about the guillotine file, a top-secret document created by the government under a former prime minister. It supposedly contains incriminating information about prominent politicians, scientists, and celebrities. If they can locate this file, it could be a powerful tool to bring Babel down. Meanwhile, Xianho joins his brother on a hunting trip. Seeing Zhang out in the open, Xianho seizes the opportunity to take him out. He points out an animal to get Zhang into position, then aims his rifle and shoots him. Though Zhang is hit, he manages to get up before collapsing again. Just as Xianho prepares to finish the job, another hunter appears, forcing him to act as though it was an accident. He asks the hunter for help, but deep down, Xianho knows he's in trouble if Zhang survives. At the hospital, the doctors inform Xianho that Zhang's injury isn't serious and that he'll recover fully. Xianho pretends to be relieved, but is secretly terrified. Later, Choi visits Zhang and suggests that since so many people are making moves against him, it's time to publicly reveal himself as Babel's true boss. Elsewhere, Vincenzo confronts Young Woon, accusing him of attempting to steal the gold. Young Woon is surprised, but Vincenzo has figured out that he was behind the failed heist. Young Woon admits to it, explaining that he owes money to dangerous people after losing millions gambling. With the truth out, the two agree to retrieve the gold together. At the same time, Zhang leaves the hospital to attend an event where wealthy investors will bid for office spaces in the upcoming Babel Tower. During the event, he reveals himself as Babel's real boss and kicks off the bidding. Back at the plaza, Vincenzo sends the tenants on a day trip to buy himself time to access the gold. Using a device that replicates the Chinese businessman's iris, Young Woon opens the safe. They enter and are stunned by the sheer amount of gold. Suddenly, Young Woon pulls a gun on Vincenzo, stating he only needs one gold bar to pay off his debts. They climb back up, but Vincenzo tricks Young Woon, disarms him, and wins their hand-to-hand fight. Vincenzo then retrieves the gold bar, revealing that the guillotine file is hidden inside it. This is why Young Woon specifically wanted that bar. Young Woon confesses he's actually a secret agent. He didn't hack the data from the businessman's art gallery. Instead, he killed the businessman by poisoning him. After the man's death, Young Woon scanned his eye using the same device they use today. As they're talking, the tenants return from their trip, forcing the two men to quickly close the hatch. Before doing so, they toss the gold bar and device back inside the vault. Meanwhile, Xianho becomes increasingly paranoid, unsure if Zhang will retaliate. To his surprise, Zhang doesn't punish him, but gives him an expensive watch instead. When Xianho questions Zhang's motives, the CEO of Babel explains his reasoning. He's keeping Xianho alive to take the fall if things ever go south. The media has started to favor Zhang, but Vincenzo is preparing another surprise for him. One night, Zhang attends an event organized by his company to present a new car line that Babel is about to produce. As the video begins, Zhang is stunned to see the high-ranking company executives discussing the murder of some union members, standing in their way. To make matters worse, a bucket of pig blood is poured on him while Vincenzo and Cha Young rise to applaud. Xianho notices them and smiles, enjoying the sight of his brother being humiliated. The police rush in and arrest Zhang, but as usual, he is released. Vincenzo and Cha Young had expected this, but they are pleased to see they are getting into his head. After a meeting with his lawyers, Zhang stands up again. Xianho invites Han for a private conversation and basically accuses him of giving him false hope about becoming the boss of Babel. Han turns the tables, saying he believed every word Xianho said and believes he would do a much better job than his brother. Xianho, motivated by these words, asks Vincenzo to meet with him. When they do, Xianho tells Vincenzo that he enjoys seeing Vincenzo outmaneuver his brother and wants to help him defeat Zhang and take over the company. Vincenzo is reluctant, but Xianho claims things will change once he becomes the decision-maker at Babel. He envisions running Babel as a completely legitimate business. Over the next few days, Vincenzo discovers that Babel uses other companies to launder money. He also learns that one of the tenants, Mizzo, is a hacker who can help him steal important data. One of Babel's money laundering fronts is an art gallery, so Vincenzo decides to visit it with Cha Young. Meanwhile, some other tenants create a diversion, and the lawyers sneak into the manager's office. With a flash drive provided by Mizzo, they steal all the data from the computer, gathering more evidence against Babel. Jang learns about this and retaliates by hiring 3 new assassins to kill Vincenzo. The assassins trap him on the roof, but Vincenzo narrowly escapes thanks to a swarm of pigeons. He eventually kills the assassins, infuriating Jang even more. The battle between them continues as Vincenzo prepares his next move. He reveals to his team that he now possesses the guillotine file, which he stole from inside the golden plate before tossing it back into the hatch. With this file, they uncover rumors about a man named Zhang Bi, the owner of a company about to sign a contract with Babel. The rumors suggest that Zhang Bi pushed his business partner off a cliff to take full control of the company. Vincenzo investigates further and pretends to be a medium who can communicate with the spirit of the dead partner. He delivers a message from the spirit, convincing Zhang Bi not to sign the contract with Babel. Jang grows increasingly frustrated as Babel's stock price drops, clearly suffering from Vincenzo's efforts. In response, the CEO of Babel devises a new plan to eliminate Vincenzo by sending an assassin after him. Vincenzo fights back, chasing the assassin to the roof. As he pursues him, a body falls from above, and the police are soon called. Officers find Vincenzo near the body and assume he's the one who killed the man. Vincenzo manages to beat them and escape. Meanwhile, the assassin tries to flee the building, but encounters Babel's former thugs. They capture him and take him to Vincenzo, who forces the assassin to reveal the location of his associates. After taking them down, Vincenzo clears his name and is free of any charges. Jang feels defeated again, but he isn't ready to give up. While Vincenzo spends time with his biological mother, Jang prepares his next attack. He uses a woman disguised as a cleaning lady to plant an explosive device inside the building. That night, the device is activated, cutting one of the gas pipes. The tenants begin evacuating the building, but they don't have much time since the woman has also left behind a bomb. Fortunately, the firemen discover the bomb disguised as a watch. Vincenzo spots them holding it, rushes over, and tosses the watch out of the window. Jang, enraged, lashes out at his brother until Choi enters his office with a photo of Vincenzo's biological mother. Jang sees an opportunity and tells Choi to prepare for their next move. Choi has one of their men, just released from prison, tasked with killing Miss Yoon. The man enters the hospital at night, posing as a nurse, and successfully gains access to Miss Yoon's room, where he kills her. Jang and his associates celebrate, but Vincenzo is already on the hunt for the person who killed his mother. Vincenzo watches the hospital security footage and figures out who the killer is. He tracks the man down, teaches him a lesson, but keeps him alive, torturing him instead of killing him. Vincenzo demands to know who gave the order and lets the man run to his boss, offering him a chance at survival. The man leads him straight to Jang's country house. The security guards attempt to stop Vincenzo, but he's determined to finish his mission. Once he confronts the others, he shoots the killer dead, terrifying everyone in the house. Vincenzo fires a few bullets around his enemies and tells them they will die, but not today, and not from a bullet. First, he'll take what's theirs, then kill them. Before leaving, Vincenzo proves he's serious by shooting Jang in the ear. The next morning, Jang wakes up in a foul mood and slaps his brother, yelling at him. He also snaps at lawyer Choi, demanding she come up with a solution to get rid of Vincenzo, who seems unbeatable. Jang soon rehashes the plan to sell office spaces at the upcoming Babel Tower, but one of his former subordinates, now working for Vincenzo, bursts into the event room with a bomb strapped to his body and another one hidden in a cake. He uses the room's speakers to give instructions to the attendees, now locked inside. He tells them they must stay away from Babel if they want to live, forcing them to eat the contracts they signed. One by one, the business people who bought office spaces at the event begin eating the contracts. Eventually, Vincenzo opens the doors, letting them go. The supposed bomb explodes, but it's just water spraying everywhere. Meanwhile, H begins to feel threatened and meets with a wealthy real estate mogul to ask for protection. The power struggles continue. Vincenzo gathers more intel on Babel through the agency's chief, who attends private meetings with Jang and secretly records them. On the other hand, Jang has been working on his own scheme. When Seon-ho meets with Vincenzo again, things get tense. They both pull guns on each other, but they're interrupted by Interpol agents arriving to arrest Vincenzo. During the confrontation, Vincenzo is shot. As the agents approach him, Vincenzo suddenly springs up, holding them at gunpoint, and takes everyone to a nearby container. There, he kills a few of the agents and warns the others to go back, offering them evidence in exchange for them leaving him alone. He promises them enough to arrest his stepbrother, Pagla, in Italy. Throughout all of this, Vincenzo and Cha Young have been building a strong case against Babel. When reporters approach them, they make bold statements, declaring that Babel is going down. The war between Vincenzo and Zhang intensifies, and Han becomes a district judge, thanks to his influential connections. Vincenzo has a conversation with him and threatens him, find a reason to imprison Zhang for a few months, or Han will pay the price. Vincenzo knows that Zhang won't stay behind bars forever, but that's not his main goal. He just wants to make Babel's president's life as difficult as possible while Zhang is incarcerated. Vincenzo later visits Zhang in prison to taunt him further. However, Zhang has a powerful ally of his own, a politician named Kim. Kim sends his men to attack Youngwoon, and he learns about the gold hidden in the plaza. One night, he gathers his muscle and visits the plaza, but the tenants fight back, pushing Kim and his crew away with some help from Vincenzo and an agent. Meanwhile, the female hacker manages to open the hatch using her computer, and the tenants successfully transfer all the gold out of the plaza. Kim, on the other hand, wakes up near a dumpster with a terrible headache. Afterward, the good guys prepare for another battle against Babel in court, but no final decision is reached. Seon-ho gets his hopes up and meets with Han, eager to hear that he'll be able to take over Babel if his brother goes down. However, Zhang is soon released from jail and begins showing everyone just how furious he is. First, he attacks and kidnaps Cha Young. Then, he storms into his brother's office and holds him at gunpoint. But instead of killing him, he strikes him hard. When Seon-ho wakes up, he finds himself in the same room as Cha Young. Neither of them is surprised, knowing what kind of person Seon-ho is. Vincenzo tries to find them, but he's stuck. Zhang has a gun pointed at Cha Young's face. Out of nowhere, Seon-ho attacks his brother, and Cha Young joins in. Eventually, Zhang attempts to shoot Vincenzo, but Cha Young takes the bullet instead. Seon-ho tries to stop his brother again, but Zhang is ruthless and shoots him. Zhang then sees Vincenzo holding Cha Young in his arms, and he has the perfect shot. He pulls the trigger, but his gun is empty. Realizing he's in trouble, Zhang decides to flee. Cha Young is stable, but when Vincenzo checks on Seon-ho, he finds that Seon-ho dies in his hands. The next morning, Cha Young wakes up in the hospital, but she's going to be fine. Later, Vincenzo meets with the agent and gives him the guillotine file, trusting him to handle it correctly. With everything else taken care of, Vincenzo begins eliminating his enemies. He starts by killing Han, and then waits for Choi in her office while she tries to escape. After torturing her, he pours gasoline on her and sets her on fire. Finally, a mixed group of tenants and ex-Babel thugs intercept Zhang. Some shots are exchanged, but Vincenzo arrives on the scene, shooting Zhang twice in the legs. He then drags him into his car and drives away before the police can find them. When Zhang wakes up, he's tied to a chair with a drilling machine set near his chest. After they exchange some final words, Vincenzo programs the machine to drill into Zhang's body and simply walks away, leaving him to die a slow and painful death. Next, Vincenzo meets with the agent and Youngwoon, who hand him a passport and bid him farewell. Just before he leaves the country, Cha Young shows up to say goodbye, wishing they could have more time together in the future. Gradually, everything falls into place. Cha Young sends all the bad guys to jail, and a few months later, her law firm becomes one of the most trusted in the country. Vincenzo visits Cha Young to congratulate her on her success and to share their first kiss. Though Vincenzo has to leave, the door remains open for them to see each other again in the future. So this is the conclude of this story. For more videos, subscribe to Cine Recaps.